The rain fell like a quiet whisper against the black umbrellas gathered around the grave, each drop punctuating the silence that followed the priest's final words. My husband's name, carved in fresh granite, looked too real and too final, and yet a part of me refused to believe he was inside that coffin. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, the priest intoned, and the mourners murmured their amens while I stood there, numb, my hand clutching the cold stem of a single white rose. I had practiced what to say, what to feel, what to look like, but when the first shovelful of soil hit the coffin, everything inside me shattered. The world dimmed around me, voices blurred, and all I could hear was my own heartbeat echoing in my ears. My husband Daniel was gone, or so they told me. The funeral had been arranged in a rush, almost too fast. His car had gone off the bridge 3 days earlier, the police said, swept by the river's current. The body recovered downstream had been unrecognizable, but the wedding ring and his wallet were enough for them to close the case. There were condolences, casseroles, and those strange pitying looks that came with every handshake. People whispered that I was too calm, that grief hadn't hit me yet. But what they didn't know was that I had cried all I could in the first 24 hours, then stopped feeling altogether. It was easier to go numb than to keep asking why. As the crowd dispersed, I stood there staring at the grave until everyone was gone except for Ethan, Daniel's younger brother. He placed a hand on my shoulder, his voice low and careful. "He loved you, Grace. He'd want you to be okay." I nodded, unable to meet his eyes. Ethan had been helping with the funeral arrangements, checking in constantly, almost too often. There was a kindness in him, yes, but also something I couldn't quite place, a guardedness that made me uneasy. I told myself it was just grief twisting my perception. The wind picked up, scattering dead leaves over the fresh mound of earth. I turned to leave when my phone buzzed in my coat pocket. Absent-mindedly, I pulled it out, expecting another message from my mother or a friend checking in, but what I saw froze me in place. The message was from Daniel. "I am still alive. Trust no one." My breath caught. I read it again, my fingers trembling so hard I nearly dropped the phone. The number was his. The same number I had called dozens of times in vain after they said he was gone. For a moment, I thought it had to be some cruel joke, a scam, or a glitch. But the timestamp was current, sent just seconds ago. I looked around the cemetery, my pulse racing. Ethan was standing by his car now, talking on the phone, his back turned. No one else was near. I felt dizzy, the edges of my vision blurring. Was someone playing with me? Or had Daniel somehow survived? The message glowed on the screen like a lifeline and a warning all at once. I slipped the phone back into my pocket and forced myself to breathe. If he was alive, what did he mean by trust no one? Who was I not supposed to trust? Ethan, the police, everyone? I left the cemetery without saying another word, driving home through the drizzle with that single sentence replaying in my mind. When I reached our house, the house Daniel and I had bought 2 years ago, it felt haunted. His shoes were still by the door, his jacket still hanging by the stairs. The smell of his cologne lingered faintly in the air. I sat on the couch, phone in hand, staring at the message. I typed back, "Where are you?" But the message didn't deliver. A red exclamation mark appeared instead. I tried calling, and it went straight to voicemail. His voice, recorded months ago, was calm, warm, familiar. "Hey, it's Daniel. Leave a message." I hung up before the beep, my hands shaking. My mind raced through possibilities. Could it be someone using his phone? Could he have staged his own death? But why? The police report had seemed clear, but I hadn't actually seen the body. Just a closed coffin, a few photographs I could barely look at. I remembered how the detective avoided my eyes when he handed me Daniel's ring. "We're sorry for your loss," he had said, as if reading from a script. I had accepted it because it was easier than asking questions I wasn't ready for. But now, every detail felt suspicious. The missing surveillance footage from the bridge, the quick cremation, the insurance paperwork Ethan had been so eager to handle. My thoughts spiraled until I could barely breathe. I needed answers, but I also knew one thing. If Daniel was alive, someone had tried to make me believe he wasn't, and that meant danger. I went to the study and unlocked Daniel's desk drawer. Inside were his files, his notebooks, his passport, and an old flash drive labeled private. I plugged it into my laptop, my heart pounding. The drive contained folders, some encrypted, others filled with documents I didn't understand, contracts, coded messages, and photos of people I'd never seen. One folder was labeled Gideon Corp. I clicked it open and saw correspondence between Daniel and someone named RK, discussing a project, deadlines, and something called Phase 7. My husband had been a systems analyst, nothing glamorous, at least that's what I thought. But these emails hinted at something far bigger, something secret. Just as I began reading further, a pop-up appeared on the screen. Remote access detected, system shutting down. The screen went black. I jerked back in shock. The laptop was dead, unresponsive. Someone had wiped it remotely. My blood ran cold. This wasn't random. Someone knew I'd found something I shouldn't have. I ran to the window and peered outside. A black car was parked across the street. The windows were tinted, engine running. I couldn't see who was inside, but I felt watched. The phone buzzed again. A new message. This time it was a different number, unknown. "He told you, didn't he? Stop digging, Grace." My breath hitched. I dropped the phone as a sharp knock echoed at the door. The knock came again, harder this time, snapping me out of my frozen panic. My first instinct was to ignore it, to back away quietly and pretend I wasn't home. But whoever was outside seemed to know I was there. I could feel their presence, an oppressive stillness that pressed against the door like a held breath. Slowly I reached for my phone, but it slipped from my sweaty palm and hit the floor. The sound echoed through the hallway. The knocking stopped. My heart thudded in the silence that followed. Then a voice, calm, measured, male. "Grace, it's me. Open the door." It was Ethan. Relief and dread tangled in my chest, of all people. He was the last one I wanted to see right now. I hesitated, staring at the door handle. How long had he been standing there? Could he have sent that message? I glanced through the peephole. It was definitely Ethan. Same dark coat from the cemetery, eyes shadowed under the porch light, but there was something in his stance, something too still, too deliberate. "Grace," he called again, knocking once more, softer this time. "I just wanted to check on you. You left so suddenly." I forced myself to speak, my voice trembling. "I'm fine, Ethan. I just need some time alone." He smiled faintly through the glass. "Of course, but it's late, and you shouldn't be by yourself right now. Let me come in, please." My instincts screamed no. I took a step back. "I'll be okay," I said firmly. For a few seconds he didn't move. Then, without another word, he nodded and walked back to his car. I watched through the curtain as he got in, but instead of driving away, he stayed there. The headlights went off. The silhouette remained, watching, waiting. I didn't turn on any lights that night. I sat by the window, clutching the phone, my eyes fixed on the dark shape across the street. Around midnight, the car finally started and pulled away, disappearing down the road. Only then did I let out the breath I'd been holding. Sleep didn't come easily. When it did, it brought no rest, only flashes of Daniel's face underwater, reaching for me, mouthing words I couldn't hear. I woke at dawn, drenched in sweat, the phone still clutched in my hand. The first thing I did was check for new messages. Nothing. The one from Daniel was still there, taunting me like a riddle. I thought about going to the police. But what would I tell them? That my dead husband texted me from beyond the grave? They'd think I'd lost it. Maybe I had, but the message had been real. The documents, the car outside, the warning. Too real to dismiss as grief-induced paranoia. I needed to find proof, something solid. Daniel's office was my next stop. He had rented a small workspace downtown where he supposedly did freelance consulting. I'd only been there a few times. When I arrived, the door was locked, the blinds drawn. I tried the handle. Nothing. But when I crouched down, I noticed the lock plate had fresh scratches, like it had been forced recently. My stomach twisted. Someone else had been here. I fished through my purse and found the spare key Daniel had given me months ago. It slid in easily, the tumblers clicking softly. The room smelled of dust and coffee. His desk was bare except for a monitor and a single folder labeled Accounts. Inside were bank statements, only the balances didn't make sense. Large sums had been transferred out in the weeks before his death, all to an offshore account I'd never seen before. One name kept appearing as a recipient. RK Holdings, the same initials from the encrypted emails. I snapped a few photos with my phone. Then I heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow, heavy, getting closer. I froze, heart hammering. The footsteps stopped right outside the door. A pause, then the faint sound of breathing. I held my breath. The doorknob twitched, once, twice, like someone testing it. I looked around for a way out. There was only a small window by the desk. Without thinking, I slipped the folder into my bag, opened the window, and climbed out onto the fire escape, just as the door creaked open behind me. I didn't look back. I climbed down as quietly as I could and ran until my lungs burned. When I finally stopped, I ducked into a nearby cafe, shaking so hard I could barely hold my cup. My phone buzzed again. This time a new number. They're watching you. Don't go home. I stared at the message, pulse roaring in my ears. No name, no clue who sent it. But the timing, seconds after I'd fled, made my stomach turn. Whoever they were, they knew where I was. I looked around the cafe, scanning faces. A woman with a laptop, a man reading a newspaper, a teenager on his phone. Everyone looked ordinary, harmless. But the paranoia was crawling up my spine now, whispering that any of them could be watching. I had to move again. I called my best friend, Lily. She'd been there for me since the accident, though I hadn't told her about the messages. "Grace?" she said, sleepy. "It's 6 a.m. "I need your help," I whispered. "Can I come over?" There was a pause. "Of course. Are you okay?" "I'll explain when I get there." I took a cab, giving random turns to make sure no one was following. When I finally arrived at Lily's apartment, she opened the door, concern etched on her face. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I almost laughed at the irony. "It's complicated," I said, stepping inside. She handed me coffee and waited while I tried to form the words. Finally, I told her everything. The text from Daniel, the deleted files, the car, the messages, the office break-in. Her expression shifted from disbelief to fear. "Grace, this sounds insane," she said softly, "but you're shaking." "I can tell you believe it." "I don't just believe it, Lily. I know something's wrong." I showed her the text from Daniel. She stared at it for a long time. "Could someone have cloned his number?" she asked. "Maybe. But why go to that trouble? Maybe blackmail? Maybe someone wants something from you." I shook my head. "I don't have anything they'd want." Lily hesitated. "What if Daniel was into something dangerous, and now they think you know too much?" The thought chilled me. It fit too well. Before I could answer, her doorbell rang. We both froze. "Who is that?" I whispered. She checked the peephole. Her face went pale. "It's Ethan." Lily turned away from the peephole, her voice barely a whisper. "What is he doing here?" My stomach knotted as I glanced toward the door, half expecting it to burst open. "Don't answer," I mouthed. Stepping back into the living room, she nodded, her hand trembling slightly as she turned off the lights. The room sank into shadow, illuminated only by the weak gray light seeping through the blinds. Ethan's silhouette stood motionless behind the frosted glass of the door. A single knock echoed through the silence. "Grace," his voice called softly, almost tenderly. "I know you're in there." My breath caught. How did he know where I was? I hadn't told anyone, not even Lily, until moments ago. I looked at her, panic flashing between us. "Did you—" I started, but she shook her head quickly. "I swear I didn't tell anyone." The knocking came again, firmer this time. "We need to talk," Ethan said. "It's about Daniel." My pulse quickened. I couldn't tell if he was lying, but curiosity pressed against fear. Whispering that he might know something. Lily stepped closer, whispering urgently, "If you open that door, you're insane." I hesitated, torn. "He could have answers. Or he could be the reason you're in danger," she shot back. Ethan's shadow shifted. "Grace, please," he said. "You don't understand. You're not safe." The words made my skin crawl because they were the same ones from the anonymous text. "They're watching you." I bit my lip, thinking fast. "Stay here," I whispered to Lily. "I'll handle it." Before she could protest, I moved toward the door, heart hammering. I didn't unlock it, but I spoke through the wood. "What do you want, Ethan?" There was a pause. Then his voice dropped. "Daniel isn't dead. You know that now, don't you?" My blood ran cold. "How do you know about the message?" He let out a shaky sigh. "Because I got one too." The silence that followed felt heavy, electric. "You're lying," I said automatically, but my voice trembled. "Why would he text you?" "Because he's in trouble," Ethan replied, "and so are we." I turned to Lily, who mouthed, "Don't trust him." I hesitated a moment longer before unlatching the door but leaving the chain on. When I cracked it open, Ethan's face appeared in the narrow gap, pale, drawn, eyes darting down the hall as if expecting someone to follow. "We can't talk here," he whispered. "They're watching the building." "Who's they?" I demanded. "The same people who took Daniel, the same people who sent you that message." My stomach churned. "You're making no sense." "I'll explain everything," he said, "but not here. There's a place we can go, safe." Behind me, Lily whispered sharply, "Don't go anywhere with him." Ethan's gaze flicked past me, seeing her for the first time. "You shouldn't have told anyone," he said under his breath. "Now she's a target too." Something in his tone made my blood freeze. "Leave her out of this," I said, closing the door slightly. But before I could, he pressed his hand against it, eyes wide. "Grace, please. If you stay here, you'll both be dead by morning." The raw fear in his voice didn't sound faked. Torn between terror and disbelief, I finally slammed the door shut and locked it. "Go away, Ethan," I shouted. He didn't respond. A few seconds later, I heard his footsteps retreating down the hallway. I backed away, shaking. "He's lost it," Lily muttered. "Or he's part of it," I whispered. The two possibilities twisted inside me until I couldn't tell which was worse. We sat in silence, the air thick with unease. Hours crawled by. Outside, dawn bled into the city, pale and uncertain. I dozed off at some point, exhaustion pulling me under. When I woke, Lily was gone. Her phone was on the counter, her coffee cup half full. "Lily?" I called out, checking the bathroom. The bedroom, nothing. The front door was slightly ajar. Panic flooded me as I ran into the hallway. It was empty, but a folded note lay on the doormat. My hands shook as I picked it up. The handwriting wasn't hers. "If you want to see her again, come to the pier. Alone. No signature, no explanation, just coordinates written underneath." My first instinct was to call the police, but something deep inside told me not to. If Daniel's warning was true, trust no one, then involving anyone could make it worse. My only option was to go. I threw on a coat and headed for the waterfront. The pier was deserted when I arrived, the air thick with mist rolling off the water. The smell of salt and rust filled my lungs. Seagulls circled overhead, their cries echoing like distant screams. I walked slowly, scanning the shadows between the warehouses. "Lily?" I called, my voice barely above a whisper. No answer. Then from the far end of the pier, I saw movement, a figure stepping out from behind a crate. My heart lurched. It was Daniel. He looked thinner, older somehow, but unmistakably him. "Grace," he said softly, his voice rough but real. I froze, tears springing to my eyes. "Daniel, how is this possible?" He raised his hands, palms open. "I don't have much time. They're coming." I wanted to run to him, to touch him, to make sure he was real, but something held me back. "You faked your death?" I choked out. He shook his head. "No, they tried to kill me. I barely got away." "Who?" "Gideon Corp," he said. "The people I worked for. I discovered something about their data project. They were using it for surveillance, blackmail, worse. When I tried to expose it, they came after me. Ethan helped me fake the crash, but something went wrong. They found out." My head spun. "Ethan helped you?" He nodded. "He was supposed to protect you until I could contact you again. But someone betrayed us. I think they're watching him too." The pieces didn't fit neatly. "Then why the messages? Why the warnings?" "Because I couldn't reach you any other way," he said urgently. "Everything's monitored. Phones, emails, everything. Grace, they think I'm dead. But if they realize you know the truth, they'll come for you too." A sound echoed, a car door slamming nearby. Daniel's eyes darted toward it. "You have to go. Now." "Not without you," I said. "We can go to the police, Daniel. We can tell them everything." He grabbed my hand. His touch was warm, solid. "You can't trust anyone, not even the police, especially not them." Before I could respond, a voice shouted from the distance. "Freeze!" Flashlights cut through the fog. Daniel's grip tightened. "Run," he whispered. "Don't stop." Daniel pulled me behind a stack of old crates just as two beams of light swept across the pier. I could hear footsteps crunching on gravel and the low crackle of radios. "They're here for me," he whispered. "Grace, listen to me carefully. If they catch me, it's over, but you can still get out." My heart pounded so hard it hurt. "I'm not leaving you again," I said, gripping his arm. He shook his head desperately. "You have to. There's a locker at the old train station, number 317. Inside, there's a drive, documents, everything I've gathered. Take it and find someone named Marcus Lynn. He's the only one who can help you now." The sound of boots drew closer. "Daniel!" a voice barked through the fog. "Come out, we know you're here." He pressed a small metal key into my palm. "Whatever happens, don't let them take this." The lights flared suddenly as two figures in dark tactical gear emerged from the mist. "Run!" Daniel shouted, pushing me toward the edge of the pier. I stumbled forward, half blinded, half panicking. Behind me came the sharp crack of gunfire. I screamed his name, but the chaos swallowed my voice. I didn't stop running until my lungs burned and my legs trembled. When I finally turned back, the pier was empty, silent, and Daniel was gone. I stood there shaking, clutching the key so tightly it cut into my skin. The fog pressed in like a living thing. Then I saw it, a small smear of blood near the crates where he'd been standing. I wanted to collapse, but something inside me refused. Not again, not without answers. I forced myself to keep moving, slipping into the narrow streets behind the docks until I found a cab. The driver looked at me curiously as I climbed in, soaked and trembling. "You okay, miss?" he asked. "Just drive," I said, giving him the address of the train station. Every shadow on the way there felt like a threat. Every passing car made me flinch. When we arrived, dawn was breaking again, weak light spilling over the empty platforms. The station was mostly deserted at that hour. I found locker 317 near the back, exactly where Daniel had said. My hands shook as I slid the key in. Inside was a small black USB drive and a folded envelope. I opened the envelope first. Inside was a single photograph. Daniel and I at our anniversary dinner 2 years ago. And a short handwritten note. If you're reading this, it means they found me. Don't trust anyone from the company, not even Ethan. Marcus Lynn can be trusted. He's in Chicago. Use the drive to find him. I love you. Always D. Tears blurred my vision, but I managed to pocket the drive. I was about to close the locker when I heard footsteps echoing behind me. I turned sharply. Ethan stood a few meters away, his expression unreadable. "Grace," he said, raising his hands. "You shouldn't be here." My blood went cold. "You followed me." "You didn't leave me a choice," he replied. "You shouldn't have come to the pier. They know now." I stepped back, gripping the locker behind me. "You betrayed him, didn't you?" "No," he said quickly. "It's not what you think. Daniel trusted me. I was trying to protect both of you, but they have people everywhere. The moment you texted me, they traced it. They'll be here any second." I didn't believe him. "Stay away from me." "Grace, listen," he said urgently. "Daniel's alive, but not for long if you don't leave right now. Give me the drive. I'll get it to Marcus safely." His eyes darted to my pocket. "No," I said firmly. "I'm done trusting anyone but myself." His jaw tightened. "Then you'll get yourself killed." Behind him, 2 men in black suits entered the station. Scanning the area, Ethan swore under his breath. "It's too late! Run!" he shouted again. This time I didn't hesitate. I sprinted toward the exit, clutching my bag as I shoved through the side door into the parking lot. Tires screeched somewhere behind me. I ran until I saw a bus pulling out of the terminal and jumped aboard, barely making it through the doors before it closed. I collapsed into a seat, gasping for air. The bus rumbled forward, the city sliding away through the windows. For a brief moment, I let myself breathe, but the relief didn't last. As I looked out, I spotted a black SUV following behind, keeping distance but never losing sight. They had found me again. I got off at the next stop and ducked into a small diner, pretending to be just another tired traveler. My reflection in the window looked like a stranger, hair disheveled, eyes hollow with shock. I ordered coffee just to have something to do with my hands. While I waited, I pulled out my laptop and plugged in the USB drive. A single folder appeared, labeled simply Evidence. Inside were dozens of files, spreadsheets, email exchanges, financial documents, even surveillance photos. My husband hadn't been paranoid. Gideon Corp had been spying on political figures, business leaders, even journalists, using their private data for blackmail and manipulation. And Daniel had somehow gotten proof. One file caught my attention, Project Orion, Final Phase. When I opened it, my stomach turned. It contained blueprints and a list of names, government officials, law enforcement officers, people high up in intelligence. They weren't just collecting data. They were building a network of control. Suddenly, a voice interrupted my thoughts. "You shouldn't be looking at that, Mrs. Cole." I froze. A man in a dark coat had slipped into the booth opposite me, his tone calm but cold. "Who are you?" I demanded, snapping the laptop shut. "Someone who can help you, if you stop making mistakes." My pulse quickened. "Did Daniel send you?" "In a way," he said, "but we're out of time. They know where you are. Come with me." I stared at him, searching for any hint of deceit. His eyes were sharp, almost too calm. "If you were really here to help, you'd tell me your name." He hesitated. "Marcus Lynn," he said finally. "Now move unless you want to end up like your husband." I stared at him, the name echoing in my head like a bell struck too hard. Marcus Lynn, the one Daniel said I could trust. But could I? The diner buzzed faintly with early morning chatter, but between us, the air was taut and dangerous. "Prove it," I said quietly, my fingers brushing the laptop in case I needed to bolt. Marcus reached slowly into his coat pocket, his movements calm, deliberate. He pulled out a small, battered leather wallet and slid a photo across the table. It was of him and Daniel, standing in front of what looked like an office building, both younger, smiling, alive. "That was taken 7 years ago," Marcus said softly. "We worked together in cybersecurity before Gideon Corp recruited him. He found something they were hiding. He sent me the first batch of files before they tried to erase him." My breath hitched. "Erase him?" Marcus nodded grimly. "Gideon doesn't just fire people, they eliminate problems. Daniel was lucky to escape at all." I wanted to believe him, but paranoia had become second nature. "Why should I trust you?" I asked. "Because Daniel did," he said simply, "and because I'm the only one who can decode what's on that drive. But we can't talk here." He stood, scanning the diner with eyes that missed nothing. "There's a car outside. Come with me." If I wanted to hurt you, I wouldn't be wasting time asking. I hesitated for a long moment before following him. The SUV that had been tailing me earlier was gone, or maybe it was waiting. I climbed into Marcus's car, still gripping my bag tightly. As we drove, I watched the city blur past in streaks of gray and gold. "Where are we going?" I asked finally. "Somewhere safe," he said. "For now." The drive took us through the industrial outskirts, where the skyline thinned and warehouses stretched into fog. He pulled into a small auto shop that looked abandoned, the kind of place no one would think to check. Inside, the scent of oil and dust clung to the air. He led me to a back room, flicking on a single lamp that cast long shadows across a metal table. "Let's see what you've got," he said. I handed him the drive, watching as he connected it to an old laptop. The files opened again, streams of data filling the screen. "This is worse than I thought," Marcus muttered, scrolling through folders. "They've expanded the project." "Expanded how?" I asked. He exhaled slowly. "They're no longer just collecting data. They're rewriting it, altering digital identities, erasing records, manufacturing entire people. They can make anyone disappear or reappear with a keystroke." I swallowed hard. "That's impossible." He turned to me, expression grim. "Then how do you explain your husband's death certificate?" The words struck like a blow. "You're saying they faked it?" "They faked everything," Marcus said. "Car crash, autopsy, even the eyewitnesses. Daniel was supposed to vanish quietly. When he didn't, they turned to plan B, make sure anyone who could expose them was silenced. That includes you." My hands trembled. "Then why reach out to me at all?" "Because he knew you'd never stop asking questions," Marcus said, "and he needed someone outside the system to finish what he started." The weight of it pressed down on me. Fear, grief, and something else. Resolve. "What do we do now?" I asked. He studied me for a moment, then said, "You still have access to Daniel's personal accounts." I nodded slowly. "Good. There's a hidden partition in one of them, a dead drop he used to store encrypted messages. If we can unlock it, we might find out where he's being held." "Held?" I repeated. "You think he's still alive?" Marcus's voice softened. "If he sent that message, he's alive, but not for long." He handed me the laptop. "Log in." I did, fingers trembling as I entered Daniel's old credentials. A new window flickered open. A digital vault sealed with a passcode prompt. "It's asking for a key," I murmured. Marcus leaned closer. "Think, Grace. Something only you and Daniel would know." My mind raced. Birthdays, anniversaries, passwords we used to joke about. Then I remembered. On our honeymoon, he carved a date into the wooden railing of our cabin, saying it was the day we truly started living. I typed it in. The vault opened. A single video file appeared. Marcus clicked play. The screen filled with Daniel's face, bruised, unshaven, but alive. "If you're seeing this," he began, voice hoarse, "it means they've caught up with me. Gideon Corp isn't what it seems. They've infiltrated the government, the banks, even law enforcement. They can see everything. Trust Marcus. He's one of the last good ones. And Grace, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. I never wanted you involved, but you're the only one I can trust." He paused, glancing nervously off camera. "There's one last backup drive hidden in our house, in the old clock on the mantel. It has everything. Get it before they do." The screen went black. My heart ached just hearing his voice again. Marcus shut the laptop. "We need that drive." "They sealed the house after the funeral," I said weakly. "Police tape, everything." "Then we'll break in," he said. "We have no choice." It was late when we reached the old house, the one I'd sworn I'd never set foot in again. The street was dark, silent except for the rustling of leaves. My hands shook as I slid a spare key from under the porch rail, one the authorities hadn't found. Inside, the air smelled of dust and ghosts. Every photo on the walls was a reminder of what I'd lost. Marcus moved ahead cautiously, flashlight sweeping across the living room. The clock still stood on the mantel, its hands frozen at 10:47, the exact time of the crash. I swallowed hard and reached inside the casing. My fingers brushed metal, and I pulled out a small black box, the backup drive. "Got it," I whispered. But before Marcus could respond, a beam of light flashed through the window. "Someone's here," he said sharply. We ducked as the front door burst open. Men in dark suits flooded in, guns drawn. Marcus grabbed my arm. "Back door, now!" We ran through the kitchen, knocking over chairs as bullets tore through the air. Glass shattered. I stumbled, nearly falling, but Marcus pulled me upright. We burst into the backyard, sprinting toward the trees. Behind us, voices shouted orders. "Don't let them get away!" My lungs burned, my legs screaming in protest. Marcus turned briefly, firing a single shot that hit one of the pursuers' flashlights, plunging us back into shadow. "Keep going!" he yelled. We reached a small ravine at the edge of the property and slid down, landing hard on the wet earth. My heart felt like it would explode. "They won't stop," I gasped. Marcus looked at me, face grim, sweat glistening on his brow. "Then we don't stop either. Not until this is over." We stayed low, the sound of shouting fading behind us as we crawled deeper into the ravine. The rain had started again, thin and cold, washing streaks of mud down the slope. Marcus kept moving, guiding me through the darkness until we reached an old service tunnel half hidden by vines and debris. He pushed aside a rusted gate and motioned for me to enter. Inside, the air was damp and heavy with the smell of decay. "Where does this lead?" I whispered. "Out of town," he said. "It's part of the old drainage system. No one's used it in years." We walked in silence for what felt like hours, the only sound our footsteps echoing off concrete walls. My mind raced, looping through everything that had happened: the funeral, the message, Daniel's face in that video, the men chasing us. Nothing made sense. Yet somehow it all did. Daniel had uncovered something monstrous, something worth killing for. And now, that truth was in my hands. Finally, the tunnel opened into a clearing at the edge of a forest. A pale dawn lightened the sky, streaked with gray. Marcus checked his watch. "We have about an hour before they regroup." "Then what?" I asked. "We get to Chicago. There's a safe house and a network still loyal to me. If we can upload those files, we expose them all." I nodded, though fear coiled in my gut. "And Daniel?" Marcus hesitated. "If he's still alive, they'll move him soon. But if we bring Gideon down, we might have leverage to get him back." It wasn't the comfort I wanted, but it was something. We followed a narrow path through the trees until we reached a small cabin. Inside was a makeshift operations room, old computers, maps pinned to the walls, lines of red string connecting cities and names. Marcus started setting up the laptop and the drives, his fingers moving quickly. "Once this upload starts, there's no going back," he said. "They'll know exactly where we are." "Then we do it fast," I replied. He gave me a faint smile. "You're tougher than he said." My throat tightened. "He talked about me?" "All the time," Marcus said. "Said you were the only thing that kept him sane." That almost broke me. I turned away, blinking back tears as I stared at the screen. The progress bar began to crawl forward, percentage by percentage. "Come on," Marcus muttered. "Just a few more minutes." But the moment he said it, the faint hum of engines reached us from outside. I froze. "They found us!" Marcus's jaw clenched. "They must have tracked the signal." He shoved a gun into my hand. "If they get through that door, run. Don't hesitate." "And you?" "I'll hold them off." I shook my head violently. "I'm not leaving you." "You left Daniel once," he said quietly. "Don't make that mistake again." The words hit like a blade. I wanted to argue, but the cabin windows exploded inward before I could speak. Bullets tore through the walls. Marcus dove behind the table, returning fire. I ducked, shielding my head as splinters rained down. "Go!" he shouted. The upload was at 87%. Almost there. I crawled toward the back door, clutching the drive's duplicate copy. Just as I reached the exit, a gunshot echoed, a deep, final sound. I turned. Marcus was on the floor, a crimson stain spreading beneath him. "No," I whispered, crawling to his side. His breathing was ragged. "Finish it," he gasped. "Get it out!" His hand gripped mine weakly before falling away. I bit back a sob and bolted through the door, into the trees once more. Behind me, the cabin burned. I didn't stop running until I reached the road. My car was gone, but a truck sat idling near the tree line. Empty. Keys still in the ignition. I climbed in, started it, and sped toward the highway. My hands were shaking, tears streaming down my face, but the upload counter on my phone was still moving. 94%, 97, 100. The files were out. Everything Daniel had fought for, everything he died for, was finally exposed. My phone buzzed almost immediately, hundreds of alerts flooding in as major news outlets began to share the leaks. Gideon Corp was finished, but before relief could sink in, a new message appeared on the screen. "Unknown number. You think it's over?" My blood ran cold. Another message followed seconds later. "Nice work, Grace. You were always the perfect decoy." Then a photo of Daniel, alive, standing beside someone I didn't recognize. Not bound, not afraid, smiling. I slammed on the brakes, my mind spinning. "No," I whispered. The message continued. "You really thought he was the hero?" My hands trembled as another image loaded. documents showing Daniel as one of Gideon's founders. My heart shattered. Every warning, every lie, every plea, it had all been manipulation. He hadn't been their victim. He had been their architect. I stared out at the horizon, the sunrise painting the sky blood orange. Somewhere out there, Daniel was still alive, and I realized with a hollow ache that I didn't want him found anymore. My phone buzzed one last time. "You can still join us, Grace. You've proven yourself. Trust no one, but maybe trust me." There was no signature, only a symbol, a circle intersected by 3 lines, Gideon's emblem. I dropped the phone, watching it crack on the asphalt. The sound felt final, but deep inside, beneath the fear and betrayal, something colder began to take root. I'd been a pawn in their game, but not anymore. I looked down the empty highway, wiped the tears from my face, and started the engine again. The world deserved to know what they'd done, and I was the only one left to make sure it did. The rearview mirror reflected a woman I barely recognized, but her eyes were steady, her voice calm when she whispered to herself, "This isn't over." And as the truck roared down the road toward the rising sun, I knew I wasn't running anymore. I was hunting.